Welcome everyone. I'm Casey Moore from Screen Queensland. I'm the content director here in the content team at Screen Queensland, and I'm delighted to welcome you to our webinar today with ABC Factual to talk about our upcoming factual initiative. So I'm delighted to introduce Richard Huddleston and Julie Hanna from ABC to join us and really unpack this amazing creative brief that they've put together for our initiative. Just firstly to introduce, we've got Richard, who's managing editor at ABC Factual, and Julie, who also in the Factual team as manager, again, commissioning editor. So welcome to both of you, and thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Hi everyone.
As a quick note to everyone who is joining us at home, we have put the ABC creative brief on our website in the Factual Initiative page. There's a drop-down menu where you'll be able to also access the creative brief. We will talk about it in detail today. If you have any questions, we will come to questions. You can submit them on the Q&A part of the Zoom structure, and we will come to those a little bit later. But first of all, let's dive in, Richard and Julie, just to unpacking this brief and speaking about really what you're looking for in terms of content ideas. The brief starts off by speaking about 2020 as a really defining moment in history, not only really for Australia, but for the rest of the world, but inviting our Queensland filmmakers to explore that theme of identity through the lens of this really unusual time. It's a very broad concept. What is Australian identity? And so I hoped that you could start just talking about this central theme a little bit, and the aspects that you're interested in seeing in content ideas responding to this brief.
I think for us, obviously we're in a new world at the moment, but I guess it's the changing face of Australian identity, and that can be, I think we're being deliberately broad because we don't want to narrow people's thinking. We would love to see this through the lens of diversity. So I guess how we were portrayed 2 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 100 years ago, how the face of Australia has changed immeasurably, and we'd love to encourage people to think about that idea. I mean, we're all on these devices looking at each other on Zoom, looking at each other as a collective through our art, through our monuments, through our history, but also through our day-to-day popular culture. So I think that's, for me, what we're looking to explore is who are we in 2021, and how would you represent that? Richard, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say as well, it's just from if we look at the kind of where we're at from a cultural makeup point of view, we're at a pivotal time where kind of post, Anglo and European migration, we're actually at a point now where there's more immigration from Asia. You look at the population, the Chinese population in Sydney, it's grown exponentially. Melbourne is very much kind of a focus of the Indian population, the migration. So, I guess our kind of last century history it started with kind of the Northern European immigration, and then the kind of post-Second World War immigration from kind of Southern Europe and the Middle East. And really, Australia at the moment is kind of divided into two, I'm broadly speaking here, but two kind of broad sectors from a kind of population point of view, and it's kind of regional. There's a lot of kind of migration to the cities of the younger people, and places like Adelaide, their population, it's a really old population. They're going to have problems in the near future dealing with how do you manage that. So I think it's a really interesting point on top of what Julie says about actually who we are just as a culture right now is a really kind of, it's a major point in our history. And the amount of Indigenous people that are born will be greater than the kind of European immigration that has happened in the last 100 years. So we're really changing, and we're really changing quickly. And Melbourne and Sydney and Brisbane are kind of leading that change. So I guess that's just, a kind of broader picture. Just our identity is changing up here, but it's also changing in the stats as well.
I think, I think also there's with Black Lives Matter, we're all looking for ways to be inclusive. And so I think to analyse that or to push that creatively would be really interesting.
Yeah, okay. And within the structure of the initiatives, of this specific initiative, what we're really looking for are ideas that can be further developed past the initiative into a factual series, but within the framework of this initiative, ideas will be taken through a development workshop, and a short film proof of concept pilot will be funded and produced that really responds to this brief. And so I suppose when you're looking at it from that framework, and you're addressing this broad concept and squeezing it into short form content, would your advice be to really focus in on one area of that theme? And there's so many different strands to, as you were talking about, Richard, with kind of cultural diversity. Are you looking for more overarching content that really delves into multiple strands of that, or would you think if you're producing short form content to delve down into kind of bite-sized chunks of a part of that theme?
I mean, for me, I feel like if you're looking at trying to create a factual format, there are certain beats or certain unique selling points to that idea. I mean, for example, we've just done the short form series with Luani Aman's My Body Says. Now that is a really clever factual format that takes, and I encourage you all to look at it, that takes a simple idea and has great format beats. And you basically look at who you are through how your body has lived its life. So it's and it can be pushed in any direction. So you could talk about, you could theme multiple series based on different concepts. So, like you could talk about age, you could talk about skin color, you could talk about mental health, you could talk about gender, there's just multiple ways you can push that format. So I think if you're looking to create a factual format, often, I keep saying this and people go, I don't quite know what that means, but it's often a simple idea just done really cleverly. So again, if you look at Old People's Home for 4-year-olds, or you look at War on Waste, or the idea is simple, yet it's complex in its simplicity, but it could move across different subject matters. It could move across different participants. It's just, it's not something, it's something if you're trying to create a format that could move across different ideas, I think. But how you come at that is kind of what we're all searching for, what we look for when something walks through the door and we go, this just has to be made because it's so unique and so different. I mean, we could all make a documentary about a teacup, right? But it's how we make that so engaging and intriguing that you're compelled to watch it. And I think clever formats find a way to do that.
I think a really good example, which people may already know about, but it's definitely worth checking out, is a series that we have called You Can't Ask That.
Yeah.
That is just the simplest of formats. It's one or two people sitting on a stool in front of a camera answering a series of questions. But because of the way it's cast and the subject matter, and the entry point is, I guess, to break down taboos and help us better understand people that may be marginalized in society or misunderstood. And really simple format, you get so much knowledge, so much insight, so much emotion. Now we could have, that would be a great example of something that we could get, that could be a 5-minute piece where people could be, you'd be sold straight away on that as a 5-minute, and you go, my God, we can grow that into half-hour series. And I think You Can't Ask That now is series 5. I think it's sold into 29 different countries. It hasn't changed at all, and they're still finding ways of exploring identity, and that's across, I don't know, maybe 30, 35 episodes. So that is and look, it's easier said than done to bottle that. I mean, there's a bit of magic in there, but I think it's a really a good one to study, because
that's a really good idea.
It works beautifully on social media, and it works beautifully on half-hour on the schedule, and it equally works great on iView. So that's kind of the magic formula I think everybody's trying to mine, is how is it going to work on a digital platform, how's it going to work on our primetime schedule, and how's it going to drive new viewers to iView. So yeah, I recommend everyone just take a look at that one, because it's beautiful in its simplicity, but exceptionally powerful.
And it started on iView, didn't it, Richard?
It started on ABC Two.
Right.
I'm not too sure actually.
So it wasn't immediately a prime time offering. It grew into.
Yeah, and I guess that's what we're doing here, is we're that is the ultimate objective. But at the moment, we're trying to find something that we can grow, and work with the producers and work with you guys and Screen Queensland to kind of water and nurture. So you've always got to have kind of where the idea is going, but this is short form essentially. So make your short form good, but keep thinking about how can I grow this, what's the potential of it?
Yeah, great. And I think, there is a question from Jamie that's popped up, which I think is great to answer while we're still on this question. If an idea is perfect for the theme and could be a great short film to be developed into a longer form film, could it still be considered? It could be adjusted for a series, but would perhaps be better as a feature doc. So I just wanted to answer this one quickly. That the priority here of what ABC is looking for really is those factual format series ideas.
Shall I go there, Jules?
Yeah, go for it.
So yeah, look, we have a commitment at the moment to prioritizing our budget and schedule on ideas that are not feature film length, whether it's 75 or 90. While we have some on our slate, I'm not saying we don't have any, and the arts department, which are part of Factual, they've got 5 features on their slate at the moment. We've got a couple, so it's something that we have a commitment to, but it's not a huge commitment, because that we just find that series, whether they're 2 parts, 3 parts, or 5 parts that Julie works on, they're easy to get traction in a world where we're kind of bombarded every day by a host of different ideas on a host of different platforms. To really focus an audience on a 90-minute film we find is quite harder from a pull point of view, but also from a marketing and an audience point of view. So we're not going to rule it out, but I just think opportunities at the moment are few and far between.
Yeah, sure. Just to dive a bit further into that brief, there's a reference to authenticity, and I thought it would be great for both of you to be able to speak to authenticity a little bit in terms of how do you define that, or how do you, how do you see that in terms of responding to this brief when clearly it's a very local idea, Australian identity, but when you were speaking earlier, Richard, about those migrations and world events, it's very much linked to a global identity as well when you start looking at Australian identity, and authenticity I think really feeds into that. It's something that we hear from a lot of outlets. People are looking for authentic voices, but it's something that I think everyone has a bit of a different take on how you define it.
I mean, for me, it's that the premise is authentic, that the participant, that it starts with the idea and the premise being authentic. If you're going to say to me that everybody must have a green cup, a floral cup, that's not something that I can engage with. It's not something that it's not an authentic premise. But if you're saying to me that, look, I'll go back to some of the things that I've done. If you're talking about, say, My Body Says, or you're talking about Old People's Home for 4-year-olds, or if you're talking about some of the other big factual features like War on Waste, the premise is authentic. How they come at it is very different, but the premise is authentic and the participants are authentic, and you're not putting words in people's mouths or constructing a reality that doesn't, that is your point of view and not the participant's point of view. I think the audience can smell when it's kind of not quite honest, I guess. That doesn't mean you can't play with the idea and have fun with the idea. Sean McAuliffe's On the Source that we've just put to air, that the 3-part series, that had fun and it had a great tone about it, but the premise was authentic and we could get under Sean's skin and he could give of himself. If you're going to sit down and watch a piece of content and expect the viewer to give of themselves, you need to give back. That's how I see authenticity. And I don't think it matters what genre that is, whether it's drama or comedy or entertainment like The Masked Singer. They're out there being authentic, like giving it everything they've got and giving of themselves.
Yeah, I think as well, in our department, we get kind of 300 to 350 pictures a year, and the ones that jump out of the email or jump out of the page or jump out of the room is the passion that is kind of boiling in those producers. They're just kind of, they're eating, they're breathing, they're sleeping this idea. They desperately want to make it, as opposed to the ideas that you just kind of think are a little bit kind of cookie cutter. So passionate is a kind of word that is a little bit overused, I'll admit. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for ideas that just come with such energy and devotion and the drive, drive for the idea. And like Julie says, they're great examples, what she was talking about, like On the Source, or it's got to come from the actual idea, whether it's one sentence or a tag, but it's also the desire of the producers are going to get us excited.
I mean, I guess, and we're asking people to submit an idea and then go into development. So no idea is a stupid idea. I mean, that's, if you're going to start pushing things away because you think it's not what the ABC would want, if it's an authentic idea for you and you can see it coming to life, I would encourage you to submit it, because you just never know.
Yeah.
And those are all really great examples. I mean, I know I've got other ones down here as well that have been really successful in terms of War on Waste and Old People's Home. for 4-year-olds, and you can't ask that. But I mean, should we speak to a little bit about, we're looking for unique ideas to come through, that, you know, that have some of the same, I guess, recipe for success as those programs, but we're looking for the next best thing, not necessarily, you know, a very similar idea to those.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like, Richard, you could probably speak more to this, probably get a lot of war on waste campaign style proposals, right? Or a lot of now social experiment proposals. If something's successful, all of a sudden everybody has an idea around it. But what made them unique is that they were unique. And so now we're looking for the next, what is the next unique sort of form, I guess.
I think as well, you know, you look at like War on Waste or Employable Me or Old People's Home. It's a subject that has been looked at and explored in a host of content down the years here. Like War on Waste is essentially about the environment. Now, you can, what the key to that was the format beats of the show and how it sucked in an audience. And obviously Craig was a you know, a huge asset to that. But 68% of the 7 million people who watched that show, it changed their behavior as a consequence of watching that. And over 465 community actions were taken around Australia. So, you know, that's kind of really, really special. It's not just a kind of a straight 1-hour documentary on the problem of waste. They really were, you know, they thought magically and creatively about how they could get a broad audience, whether it was a 5-year-old at school or, you know, a guy down at the Lawn Bowls Club who saw an opportunity to, you know, reduce their waste at the Lawn Bowls. And, you know, we did a great short form piece for that in a hospital in Brisbane where they were inspired to reduce their waste. And they did a whole audit on the waste in the entire hospital. And the changes were absolutely miraculous, you know. So, yeah, we're looking for something a little bit special. Just it might be a little device, it might be a beat, it might be a little idea. You know, the chair and the voice, it's a really simple idea, but that's what gets everyone in. You know, so what's your little offer that is different from anything else that's out there? And just as well, speaking about, it's so important that you study what we've got. Go on our website, go onto iView. You know, like Julie says, we get so many War on Waste kind of version 2.0. We obviously don't want that. We want something new. So do your homework before you submit your idea, because, you know, we may already have it.
Yeah, great. And I think if we can get a bit more specific, if possible, about what you're looking for, and by all means, if this is wide open and will be led by the content, please do say so. But let's talk more about kind of form and structure and, you know, length, episodes. What are you looking for? Is there specific time slots that you have in mind, or, you know, is it all open and to be determined by the idea?
Jules, do you want to kind of talk? Because my understanding is we're looking for 10-minute films, yeah, to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of, I guess, financially, we don't want to put a burden on anybody. So the idea is that we have tried to theme the concept of the, you know, the theme of the initiative around bigger play content on the ABC. So we know that we are always going, it's part of our charter to explore Australian identity and culture and who we are and push national conversations. We know we'll always be doing content around that, whether it be Sean McAuliffe or whether it be You Can't Ask That, or we'll always have those types of plays on air. So what we would do is tie this this project, or the projects that we're able to fund, we would tie that as with a distribution strategy around those bigger plays, so that you already already have a conversation playing out there about this, you know, like it's, you know, marketing and the radio and social, and we're all sort of talking about this subject. For example, Old People's Home for 4-year-olds, you know, the conversations were happening everywhere. So your piece of content would play into that bigger initiative. So you're not kind of left standing out on your own trying to find an audience. And I think that's what we've tried to do, tie it to that. In terms of what we think we want, we don't know what we want until we see it. Yeah. It's kind of interesting. Like, we do know, you know, I know that's a terrible thing to say, but we know the conversations that we want to have. We know that we want to play with different forms, and we know we want the ideas to be bold and brave. But it's kind of, this is where it's over to you guys as the creatives. Like, we're not going to sit there and go, we want this beat, this beat, this beat. We know all the things we've told you is what we want, but how it's wrapped up. For example, Back in Time for Dinner. That for me was a commission about the life of ordinary families. It, to me, was a series about the lives of women, but it was in the form of living history. So the form was so unique that it brought in a co-viewing audience, but it explored some really diverse themes on gender issues, on politics, on immigration, on Indigenous issues. Like, it explored a myriad of issues, but it was done in a different form. So we are deliberately not being prescriptive about what you bring to us, because we're very conscious that you guys might go off in a direction that, because of our words. And so what we're looking for in the bigger picture of the ABC are what are the next conversations what are the conversations we should be having as on the ABC? What do our audience want us to talk about? Like, what are the things we need to explore that add to the fabric of our society? I don't know if that helps or hinders, but yeah.
Thank you. I think just to take a step back and provide some information about the initiative to our participants here. We will open applications tomorrow for initial ideas, which will be reviewed and shortlisted to, you know, a number of successful teams, up to 8, who will take part in a further development period with the ABC. This is obviously one of our talent development initiatives, so it is really suited to practitioners who are building their careers in Queensland. And I know that a question we get quite often is, if you're not a very experienced practitioner, what kind of support can you get along the way? And so I just wanted to speak to that development period and the support that we'll have through ABC for each of the teams to go through that development phase, and at the end of that deliver those pitch materials, which will be reviewed for that final portion of funding to produce the short film. But there will be specific support from ABC, won't there, Julie and Richard?
Yeah, I mean, these initiatives, we at the ABC and in our team, in our factual team, I think Richard can attest to this, we get really excited to be working with new voices. That's what we're diverse voices from a region that we don't necessarily see day to day. So that's what we want to do, open up those conversations. So we have a team of really experienced creatives that we can draw on, and that will help guide, and we'll try and pair you up with the person we believe can give you the most support, with Richard and I overseeing that. Is that fair to say, Richard?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we've got like just the practicals, you know, in our world, we've got a development team, and they, you know, they're kind of the first port of call for any development. That wouldn't be the case for this, but Julie and I, we work with that development team all the time. And then Julie's obviously the head of factual, and then we've got Steve Oliver, who looks after documentary, and a host of other kind of really experienced people who do this day in, day out. You know, they've done it. Julie's done this for years, is find an idea on a piece of paper or an email, have conversations, build it, grow it, work out the distribution strategy. So yeah, like, you know, we recently did the Fresh Start Fund, and we got some great stuff out of that was short form that we would never have got otherwise. And, you know, it was really a great experience to get these ideas and help, you know, emerging and producers to build an idea. And that's, yeah, it's really exciting for us. You know, it's great. So we're curious to know what's coming our way.
And you mentioned diversity there, Julie. It's incredibly important to the ABC, diversity on screen. And I just wondered if you could speak to what teams should be keeping in mind when they're casting on-screen talent for these ideas. What are your priorities? What are you looking to see? And at what stage would you know, be looking for an attachment? Can ideas come through without talent attached, or is it really pivotal to the idea to really be able to see an indication of that?
No, I think the idea is the most important thing. And then the content will lead us down the development path. So I don't think you personally need to attach talent to it. But I think diversity is also about off screen as well. So I think it's about a voice. It's about what, you know, like I don't think you should, we've been talking about these big sort of national conversations, but often don't be scared to localize that to your area, because that could be the unique point of view. Or don't be scared to, you know, if you are an Indigenous filmmaker, don't be scared to pitch something in language, or, you know, like be really bold, and that's what we mean. Like don't think because I've seen these things on the ABC, I can't think outside of that, because we're really, it's a big part of what we do is push different voices. So that's what we mean by diversity. And that could be gender diversity, it could be it could be cultural background, it could be age, it could be disability, it could be any sort of diversity that, you know, it doesn't have to be, it can lend itself, think outside of just a general, you know, I have to have this, tick a box. Don't try to tick a box, I guess, with diversity.
Yeah. Okay. I can see that there's quite a few questions actually that are coming through. So I might try and get through some of those. The first one here is really whether you would be looking at factual reality ideas, whether that, you know, are there areas that you're not
Factual reality, is that a new genre? Someone just created a new genre? Yes, send it over.
Yeah, we get pitches in that space. I mean, we were looking at one yesterday in a development meeting that was based in the Northern Territory. So yeah, we're happy to look at. It's a blank canvas.
Yeah, great. I'm just scrolling through these questions.
The thing about reality, though, if you're talking Bachelor in Paradise, we're probably not going to go there.
Yeah. Okay. Curtis is asking, has a project ever gotten successfully picked up by someone who hasn't had much experience in TV, or perhaps hasn't attended university? And I do feel like we've touched on that a little bit, that really, I think a great idea, does stand out no matter, who is putting it forward, and that we will be supporting the teams. But you'd like to also speak to it.
But then it's about finding people who can help you bring your idea to life, and perhaps that's where Screen Queensland can help team people up that we may not be able to, like within. I don't know if that's something that you guys can do, Kate.
Yeah, and certainly our advice would be to build a team around yourself to really complement your strengths and areas where you feel you could also need the support of other experienced team members. So we are asking for applications from teams. So certainly, I would think about who you can pair up with, who may well, strengthen your competitiveness in that area. But we're also always happy to continue talking to.
And also certainly for any ideas that kind of progress to the next level in terms of a series, we do partner up, different filmmakers who might not have the full kind of skill set to deliver that series. We'll partner them with a more experienced, either an experienced producer or an experienced company who can help kind of mentor them and guide them through the process. So we do partnerships.
Yeah. Brianna is asking a really great question here as well, in terms of the time frame for delivery of the short film, and also the effects of the COVID filming protocols, and do the ideas need to be limited by safe production? Do people really need to be thinking about not having large groups or smaller settings? So that I think that would be a great area for us to speak to. In terms of the delivery, the timelines that we've got set at the moment is delivering to ABC in late April. So we do have some time up our sleeve, but it always goes quite fast, I know, when you're talking about producing content. So up until Christmas will really be that development period. We'll be putting on the workshop, either in person or online, in conjunction with the ABC, and then between January and April we'll be producing those short films. But in terms of the current COVID protocols and pandemic effects, how would you advise people to be crafting those ideas to be able to be filmed and produced in these conditions?
I think we need to be realistic about how and keep people safe. So, I mean, the whole point, COVID world is that nobody gets sick. So I think you need to I would be encouraging you to have strategies around that if you were to progress to production, like what are the, we want to keep everybody safe, but we are still pushing ahead with work. So how do you do that? You can, Screen Australia have protocols. I'm sure Screen Queensland has put out protocols. It's understanding what you can achieve. So I think that's practical. I don't think COVID's going away quickly.
And I think it's worth you all kind of speaking to your COVID protocols. I don't know what the submission criteria is, but it's probably worth having some reference to that to make sure that you've kind of thought about that. And certainly, like Julie says, Screen Queensland, Screen Australia and us, we can, once we've got the ideas, we can kind of help and advise and steer you on that as well. But yeah.
And SPA have criteria as well. So,
and certainly we're all mindful that that's a very fast changing situation. And so, I think it is just speaking to what the current situation is, but of course, these will be reviewed
But the other thing also is that's something that you may need to work through in development.
Yeah.
You know, you can't have all the answers to everything straight up, but if you're planning to shoot in LA, maybe that's not going to happen.
Yes. There is, sorry, excuse me. There is one further question just about application materials, about what we're looking for. And I did just want to mention that on our website, within that factual initiative page, there is a list of what will need to be submitted. And as I said, the application form for that will be live from tomorrow morning, so that you have today to be able to just jump into that brief and really start digesting what ABC are looking for, and then start building that application from tomorrow. We've allowed a generous amount of time to get those in, so we really are looking to close applications on Friday the 11th of September. So we have quite some weeks to be able to work up those ideas. The application materials, you know, there is that list on the website, things like, you know, logline, obviously the creative documents, a schedule, a budget, your indication of your talent, you know, CVs and bios of the key creatives. It's a very similar process to a lot of our initiatives. If you've applied for anything before, it's a very similar list of materials. But is there anything specific you'd like to add, either of you, in terms of adding in those creative concepts that you'd really like to see included in those materials, or advice as to, you know, what makes a compelling idea jump off the page?
I mean, for me, one of the things I think you need to think about who your audience is, like who's going to watch this content and why, and always come back to the central premise of what you're trying to do. Like it's easy to go down rabbit holes, and but as Richard has said, you know, that those ideas like You Can't Ask That, or Old People's Home, or Sean, that the actual central premise of that idea is quite simple, and then it's how you execute that. So think about who your audience is and where this is going to play, and don't get caught up in thinking you have to have all the answers to everything for the pitch. It's good to know that you've been thorough, but that the development period will also bring to light more ideas and elevate the idea. So try not to answer every one of those things, you know, like try not to sort of overwhelm yourself, because often you just keep coming back to the idea of why is this, why now, and why this form.
I think as well, it's admittedly it's a skill, but if you can't write about what your idea is in 3 or 4 sentences, then it's not crystal clear, I don't think, in your head. And we get a lot of proposals that are pages and pages long, and you get to the end and you still don't know what the idea is. So, you know, really important to be crystal clear at the very top of the page or the email or your application, and give us 3 or 4 sentences that really encapsulate what the idea is, and then we're in. But if we're a page down or 2 pages down and we're still struggling to know what the idea is, then there's a problem in how you're communicating that.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Thank you both. That time has absolutely flown, and I didn't get through all of my questions, but you've been so generous with all of your advice, and you know, I think that brief is really exciting and very clear in terms of giving Queensland creatives a really broad theme to explore, but very specific in terms of what kind of content and ideas you're looking for. So thank you so much for joining us today. If you do have any questions still, for those of you who have been joining us today, I'm more than happy to take your questions, and we can keep talking. As I said, we've got quite a few weeks until those applications close, so there's time to answer those, or if anything comes up while you're doing those materials, we're more than happy to continue discussing with you.